Have you ever given up on something because everyone said it wouldn't work? Have you stopped trying because conditions weren't perfect? This is the story of a man who planted when everyone laughed and harvested when everyone asked for help. The earth cracked under the scorching sun. Jacob looked at the dry horizon of eastern Montana and saw the same thing he'd seen for 3 years. Nothing. No clouds. No rain. No hope. The region was going through the worst drought in decades. The wells were low, the crops dead, and the farmers had given up. His father had been a farmer. His grandfather too. Jacob grew up with his hands in the soil, learning that farming was made of cycles. Time to plant, time to harvest. But when it doesn't rain for 3 years, there's no cycle. There's only waiting and desperation. The neighbors had abandoned their lands. Some moved to Billings looking for work. Others simply left everything behind and went to smaller towns where life was cheaper. The small community of farmers who used to gather at Bill's diner every afternoon was now just a group of retired men, drinking hot coffee and sharing the silence of defeat. "Jacob, you need to be realistic," said Tom, the oldest of the group, one of those afternoons. "It's not going to rain. It's been 3 years. The land is dead." Jacob just nodded, stirring sugar in his cup. But something inside him refused to accept it. It wasn't stubbornness. It wasn't denial. It was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. That night, lying in bed, Jacob looked out the window at the starry sky. His youngest son, Ethan, only 7 years old, had asked that morning, "Dad, why don't you work on the farm anymore?" The question had hurt more than Jacob expected. How do you explain to a child that sometimes life just stops? That sometimes there's nothing you can do? But then he remembered something his grandfather used to say. Hope isn't sitting around waiting for a miracle. Hope is preparing the ground for when the miracle comes. Jacob sat up in bed. Those words echoed in his mind like a ringing bell. Prepare the ground. What if he was waiting wrong? The next morning, Jacob woke before sunrise. He grabbed his tools, filled water bottles from the well that still had a trickle of water at the bottom, and went to his land. The land nobody believed in anymore. The cracked, dry land that looked more like concrete than fertile soil. He started digging. The sun rose and the heat became unbearable. But Jacob continued. He dug furrows, prepared beds, worked the hard earth as if rain was coming tomorrow. When he returned home that night, his hands were bleeding and his back ached. His wife, Sarah, put bandages on his fingers and asked gently, "What are you doing, honey?" "I'm preparing," he replied. She didn't understand, but didn't question it. She knew her husband well enough to know that sometimes he needed to do things his way. The next day, Jacob did something nobody expected. He started planting. Not much, because water was scarce. But he planted tomato seeds, cucumber, peas. He planted as if rain was on its way. He planted as if he was certain. When Tom drove by and saw Jacob planting, he stopped. He got out of his truck with an expression between concern and confusion. "Jacob, what are you doing?" Jacob wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I'm planting." Tom looked around at the dry land, at the cloudless sky, back at Jacob. "But there's no rain, man. You're wasting seeds, wasting water." "Maybe," Jacob said calmly. "But if rain comes tomorrow and I haven't planted anything, I'll have missed the opportunity." Tom shook his head. "Rain isn't coming tomorrow. It won't come this month. Maybe it'll never come again." Jacob kept planting. "Then at least I tried." The news spread quickly through the small community. Jacob had lost it. He was planting in the middle of a drought. Some laughed, others felt sorry. Some said the sun had fried his brain. At Bill's diner, he became a joke. "You guys see Jacob? He's planting for ghosts," someone joked. Laughter filled the place. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories that can change how you see life. But Jacob didn't stop. Every day, at dawn, he was there, watering with the little water he had, caring for the seeds like they were treasures, talking to the earth like his grandfather did. And at night, he returned home exhausted, with battered hands, but with something in his eyes that Sarah hadn't seen in years. Purpose. Ethan started accompanying his father. "Dad, why are you planting if it's not going to rain?" The boy asked one day. Jacob knelt beside his son. Because I'm not planning for the rain that exists. I'm planning for the rain that will exist. And while it doesn't come, I prepare. The boy didn't fully understand, but he liked seeing his father working again, alive again. 2 weeks passed. 3 weeks died a month. The seeds sprouted weekly, kept alive only by the limited water Jacob could give them. They were small, fragile, but alive. Jacob looked at those green shoots in the middle of the brown earth and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Real hope. Not the passive hope of someone waiting seated, but the active hope of someone who acts. And then, on a Thursday afternoon, something changed. The wind blew differently. Jacob felt it on his face, on his body. He looked at the sky and saw something he hadn't seen in 3 years. Clouds. Dark clouds. Heavy. Loaded. His heart beat faster. It can't be, he whispered. But it was. The first drops fell like blessings. Large, heavy drops that made noise when hitting the dry earth. And then, as if the heavens had opened, rain poured down. Strong rain. Generous. The rain everyone had given up waiting for. Jacob stood there, in the middle of his plantation, with his arms open, letting the water wash his face, his body, his soul. He laughed, he cried. He shouted with joy. Ethan ran into his father's arms, and the two danced in the rain like crazy. The rain lasted 3 days. 3 days of abundant water that filled the wells, that saturated the earth, that brought life back. When it finally stopped, the transformation was visible. Jacob's land, which had been prepared, which had been planted, exploded in green. The seeds he had cared for with such devotion now had everything they needed to grow strong and fast. Tom came to visit. He stood at the edge of the property, looking in disbelief at the sea of green. Meanwhile, his own land, unprepared, unplanted, just absorbed the water without producing anything. Jacob, he called. Jacob approached, dirty with soil, but smiling. Did you know it was going to rain? No, Jacob answered honestly. I didn't know, but I hoped. And while I hoped, I worked. Because waiting seated isn't hope, it's just waiting. Tom was silent for a long moment. I have seeds at home. Can I plant now? You can, said Jacob, but it'll take time. You'll have to prepare the land first. Plant, wait for it to grow. I'm 2 months ahead because I started 2 months ago. He didn't say it with arrogance. He said it like someone sharing a lesson learned through experience. In the following weeks, other farmers started planting, but Jacob's land was already ahead. When the first tomatoes appeared, red and shiny, people came from far away to see. The man who had been a joke was now an example. The crazy man who planted in the drought was now the wise man who harvested in abundance. Jacob's first harvest was generous. He sold part, kept part, and surprisingly, gave part to his neighbors. Tom didn't understand. Why are you giving away your tomatoes? You worked hard for them. Jacob smiled. Because I didn't plant just for myself. I planted because I believed better days would come. And when better days come, we share. That night, at Bill's diner, the atmosphere was different. The men who had laughed now listened. How did you know? Someone asked. Jacob took a sip of coffee. I didn't know, but my grandfather taught me that hope isn't a feeling, it's an action. You don't wait for good things to happen. You prepare for when they happen. What if the rain hadn't come? Another asked. Jacob thought for a moment. Then I would have lost some seeds and a few weeks of work, but I would have kept my dignity. I would have taught my son that we don't give up, that we act even when it seems impossible. That's worth more than any harvest. Months later, the region had transformed. Rain had returned to its normal cycle. Other rains came. The farms went back to producing. But Jacob's farm remained different, not because he had more luck, but because he had started first. Because when everyone stopped, he continued. Because when everyone laughed, he planted. Ethan, now 8 years old, worked alongside his father. One day, looking at the green plantation, he asked, Dad, were you scared when you were planting alone and everyone was laughing? Jacob looked at his son. Yes, I was very scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of being an idiot, scared of wasting everything. But you know what I was more afraid of? What? Of not trying, of sitting waiting and when the opportunity came, not being ready. The boy nodded, absorbing the lesson in a way only children can, deep and simple at the same time. Jacob's story spread, not because he was special, not because he had magic powers or secret knowledge, but because he represented something people had forgotten, that hope without action is just illusion, but hope with action is power today. When you pass by Jacob's farm in eastern Montana, you see prosperous land, green, alive. But the most important thing isn't what you see, it's what the story teaches. That there's no point waiting for perfect conditions. That there's no point waiting for everyone to believe in you. That there's no point waiting for clear signs and absolute guarantees. The question that remains is, what are you waiting for to start? What's your reign? What's the project, the dream, the change you want, but you're waiting for the perfect moment? Because the truth Jacob discovered is simple. The perfect moment doesn't exist. There exists the moment. When you decide to act, start today. Don't wait for total motivation. Don't wait for everyone to support you. Don't wait to have absolute certainty. Prepare your ground, plant your seeds, do the work, even when it seems like it won't amount to anything. Because when opportunity comes, and it will come, only those who planted will harvest. Real hope isn't believing good things will happen. Real hope is working to be ready when they happen. It's acting while others wait. It's planning while others doubt. It's continuing when it seems impossible. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to receive more stories that can transform hope into action and dreams into reality. Now it's your turn. What's your plantation? What do you need to start today? Even without guarantees, even without approval, even without clear signs? Because the rain might be on its way. And when it comes, do you want to be ready or do you want to just be waiting?